30 years ago, a movie was made called Crying Freeman. I bought it on DVD and I saw it and I absolutely loved it. It was one of my favorite movies to just, casually watch, since it was very fast-paced, very short, and it got to the point almost immediately. I loved this movie so much. Now, when the time came for me to, review this thing, I felt I need to rewatch this thing because not sure how this one, still holds up. I saw it and I found something that was quite peculiar and something I really did not expect to find. That this movie was even fucking better than when I watched it over 25 years ago. I love this movie, maybe for all the wrong reasons. Maybe this movie is, a corny piece of bullshit that, I just love simply because I have my nostalgia goggles nailed into my forehead. That might be so, but I actually think that I love this movie genuinely. Let's find out together what this movie is about, if you think that this is a movie for you, and most importantly, how freaking over-the-toply awesome this movie is. This is my review of Crying Freeman. Is a very successful artist. Is that how she finances that huge mansion she lives in and being able to, drink champagne on her own and stuff like that? We didn't quite get an answer to how she are able to afford her lavish lifestyle, but nevertheless, she has inner monologues and she talks about that there is a killer who is going to kill her. You see, she was in San Francisco and doing, some painting and stuff, and she witnessed a gangster murder. The son of the head of the Hakushin Society is killed in front of her by Yo, played by Mark DeCostas, is working for the Sons of the Dragons. They are some kind of a Chinese warrior sect of some kind, and he is their executioner, as explained by Mako, who is the father of the guy that Joe has killed. And he explains that they need no one else, very powerful. And as he says, the Sons of the Dragons are real, and so is the Freeman. God damn it, Mako is so cool. Too bad he is only here for a little while before, he is excommunicated from this movie. Anyway, so the fact is that Interpol has never been able to find this guy, who seems to be able to blend in anywhere and has an almost uncanny ability to kill people, almost like he is, a supreme being of some kind. Nevertheless, Emo has, identified him, and which makes her, a target for both the Yakuzas and for the Sons of the Dragons, as, mentioned by Ko, that anybody who can identify the Freeman must be eliminated. So, Yo is being tasked to kill Emo, but, things seem to kind of complicate itself. Now, here's the thing that I didn't like about this movie. Because Emo is, very uncooperative when it came to, helping the San Francisco Police Department and helping Interpol and apparently also helping the Vancouver Police Department. She seems not to be that bothered by the fact that there is a dangerous superhuman killer that, might want to kill her. She almost seems to relish in the fact that he's going to take her life. I have seen this movie a number of times, but I've never quite been able to figure out exactly why that is so. Is she suicidal? Doesn't she care? Is this some kind of suicide by very handsome, cute assassin? Or does she have some kind of, feelings for him? Has she fallen in love with him, already when they meet for the first time in San Francisco? Or doesn't she want him to get caught or something like that? I don't know. They didn't make a good job, explaining that little detail, which I think is a pretty essential detail to the movie, within the movie. But nevertheless, Yo is predictably unable to kill Emu, and instead they start boinking each other, which drives a wedge between him and his best friend Ko and the rest of the Sons of the Dragons. And how is this going to end? Is Amy going to be able to, persuade him to end his killing way, or is killing a part of his identity that he will one day, just kill her because that is what the code demands of him? What is going to happen within, the fight between the Hakushin Society and the Sons of the Dragons, and the power struggle within said organizations? That is what this movie essentially is about. And as you can see, we have a lot of ground to cover in this movie. This movie just moves in such a fantastic frenetic pace. Bam, 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 bam. Stuff happens all the time, and it is all sorts of entertaining nonsense bullshit. And Christoph Gans, who has directed this movie, obviously sees himself as the second coming of John Woo, with lots of slow motion action sequences. He has stuffed this movie to the gills with over-dramatic, melodramatic and over-the-top sequences that are so ludicrously awesome that you're just sitting there and you can roll your eyes to the point where they will end up in basically a different zip code. The sequence where, Joe is just standing there naked in a moonlit room with, white curtains blowing in the wind in slow motion, of course. We have sequences where, fire is being reflected into, the sunglasses of awesome killers in cool costumes, and we also have yakuzas with samurai swords running into the mist and meets their demise, and it is so freaking over-the-toply awesome that you are forgetting for a moment that this movie only has a $9 million budget, while Christoph Gans obviously thinks that he has $109 million to play with, because he makes you almost believe that this is a big movie. But sometimes this kind of backfires to the whole thing when certain aspects of the movie does look a little bush league. That is a problem this movie has that it can never quite get rid of, but it is a minor complaint, and considering how low budget this movie has, they make the budget feel big, and if they pretend that this movie is big, then you almost kind of believe that, well, it is big. There is a lot of really, really cool and awesome action sequences, and the chemistry between Mark DaCosta, that's perfectly casted by the way, and Julie Condra, that you absolutely believe their relationship. In fact, they have such good chemistry together, this movie would ultimately, end with them getting married, and are still married today. Ah, isn't that sweet? As I said, Mark DaCosta is so freaking great in this movie. He may not be the best actor in the entire world, but you believe him as the Freeman, and isn't he just the cutest thing you've ever seen? He's just so magnificent in this movie when, him crying after having to commit murders, which is apparently his curse, which we get to see in the flashback, which almost could have been a movie on its own, where you see how, he started off as a potter and then, became this assassin thing, which also features the single greatest sequence in the entire movie, where a mobster on fire is being stabbed to death in slow motion to the soundtrack of Verdi. More people should be on fire while being, stabbed to death in slow motion to the tunes of Verdi. It is so gosh darn amazing. There are, so many sequences in this movie that doesn't really make a whole lick of sense, and there is, the motivation of certain characters that sometimes seems a little sketchy, and also, we also have to talk about the hokey acting in this movie. And if you thought that some of the aspects of the script is very, very hokey, we also have a couple of lines in this movie that people said with the utmost sincerity that made me go, if you cooperate with us, we just might let you live. How can you say lines like that with a straight face? Also, a very, very stupid line. Mr. Nita, there is an American girl living in Hokkaido. Maybe we should pay her a visit. One American girl lives on the entire island of Hokkaido, and that is your reasoning for thinking that the Freeman is there? Hokkaido is bigger than Serbia. Jesus Christ! And then, of course, my personal favorite, when the Sons of the Dragons has been attacked in Shanghai with a massacre in the soya factory, and Ko is telling Yo that we have to strike back and stuff like that, and she tells him, no, you must not go and you must not kill people, and Yo says to Emu that they had families, Emu. And I was thinking when I watched that movie, all the people that you have killed, Joe, none of them had any family whatsoever. That argument weighs less than a pair of testicles on a fucking ant. But anyway, overlooking all of these flaws into this movie, this is such a fantastic movie. I love how corny this movie is. I love how cheesy this movie is. I love, the great pace of this movie. The action sequences are cool and big and creative, even though I could have gone for a little bit more martial arts and swordplay, and especially with the bow. The bow was fucking cool. And instead of the dollar store version of John Woo gunplay, even though it looks fucking awesome. There are a couple of sequences in this movie that looks completely ridiculous and completely hokey, especially the sequences with the Sons of the Dragons, which look like something out of a deleted sequence of Big Trouble in Little China or something like that. It looks completely ridiculous and has almost nothing to do with the rest of the movie when it comes to its tone or its look. But my god, if we could have had more movies and we could have explored more of the Sons of the Dragons aspect of the whole thing. I love how almost mythological this movie feels. This is a movie that for the right person is the correct movie. And for me, it just fitted me so well with this Daniel Steele, Stephanie Meyers, almost like, monologues that she's having, and, the beautiful locations that they are at, and the weird romance thing that is going on here, which combined very, very good for some reason with the violence and the over-the-top action sequences and the explosions and stuff like that. I love the characters. I love, the side characters that have so much small little mini arcs that they go through. This movie is just so packed with things that you almost feel like this could have been, 3 movies or something like that, or, an Amazon or Netflix show. Considering that this movie is based on, a manga, I'm surprised that they haven't done that already, considering that it has to be some kind of a, recognizable intellectual property, and there should be some kind of nostalgic demand for it. So I don't know why it hasn't happened yet. But also, who should play Joe? It's an almost impossible role to cast now that, Mark has already done it. So if you want to see a very fast-paced, creative and slightly corny, romantic action gung-fu movie, this is a movie that will fit you just right. But there is a very, very big chance that you will just see this as a hokey, over-the-top, over-dramatic piece of nonsense thing that really only exists because of what I presume is a rising demand for slightly Asian flavored gunplay movies, but in English. So they found this thing and said, well, let's make a movie about it. Because as I said, I've never read Crying Freeman, so I'm not an expert at it. If I would have read it, I would probably hate what they have done with it, because they have probably butchered up both characters and storylines in such ways that it is almost unwatchable. But since I have not done that and have no plans of doing so, I can watch this movie for what I think it is: a wonderfully hokey, romantic action movie with tons and tons and tons of action, and a character who reaches almost mythological status. And they did this on a budget of 9 million. My god, what they could have done with 100. I had to bump this movie up slightly when I rewatched it, and as I said, it might be a case of the nostalgia that is talking through me, but I truly believe that this movie deserves 85 points. This is a fantastically awesome action movie, probably the best direct-to-video action movie I've ever seen. Granted, it did go up on a few smaller markets here and there in Europe after its release, but in my opinion, it feels and looks like a direct-to-video action movie. But unlike most of those movies, this movie fucking rules. I love the characters, I love the romance, even though it makes very little sense. I love the style of the movie, and this movie made me feel something. And I love the ending, that is actually quite perfect. It's both an open ending and a shut ending at the same time. You have options. There is no sequel baiting in this movie. Technically, you could say that it is, but you could also say that it isn't. And this is a movie that not all people will like, but if you're the right type of person and you're in the right type of mood, This is a movie that is absolutely going to knock your socks off. So what do you think about Crying Freeman? Do you think that it should be, you know, a remake to this one? Do you think that it should deserve, you know, a series on Netflix or on Amazon? Comment below and I'll see you next time from, well, so-and-so reviewing, well, such and such. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.